Hello, and today we will be wrapping up our notes on evolution with the phylogenetic trees, also known as cladograms, and taxonomy. So let's get through those. So phylogenetic trees, they look like this. They're kind of like family trees again, like pedigrees that we talked about, but then this time we're talking about different species and where they kind of came from. So a phylogenetic tree is a diagram that shows relationships evolutionarily among a group of organisms. We classify this based on common ancestors, not just how they look, not just what they do, but on common ancestors. So here we have a cladogram or a phylogenetic tree. You can call it either one. Cladograms are usually kind of more in this straight format. Phylogenetic trees are generally more rounded, but they're essentially the same thing. And we have 4 different species at the top: sharks, frogs, kangaroos, and humans. And then at the very bottom, we have some kind of common ancestor, something that was common to all of these. These 2, kangaroos and humans, we know they're both mammals just because we know that. And we see that these 2 are the most closely related. They branched off most closely to each other. Here we can put traits on the cladogram or phylogenetic tree, and those get passed down, or they show that these traits have been passed down to everything below it. So vertebrae, meaning they have a backbone. Sharks have a backbone, frogs have a backbone, kangaroos have a backbone, humans have a backbone. So everything further down has one. 4 limbs, same thing. Frogs have 4 limbs, kangaroos have 4 limbs, humans have 4 limbs. But notice that sharks are before it. Sharks do not have 4 limbs. So that trait is not included in sharks because it happens after. Mammary glands, meaning milk can be produced. That can only happen in kangaroos and in humans. Frogs can't do it, sharks can't do it, the common ancestor can't do it. And then placenta, that is the type of development in birth. So that would be like humans and dogs and cats. We have the mom gets pregnant and the full development happens inside the body. That only happens in humans in this one, or dogs or cats. But in kangaroos, they have that little pouch on the outside, and a lot of the development occurs in there. So they don't have a placenta. So we look at traits one by one and where they show up in different species to determine how the species are similar. So once again, this diagram shows a relationship between 4 relatives: the sharks, the frogs, the kangaroos, and humans, and they share a common ancestor at the root or the tip of the tree, or the base of the tree. Also, this is a timeline. The older organisms are at the start or the base of the tree, bottom of the tree. So like sharks are older than frogs. Frogs are older than kangaroos. Kangaroos are older than humans. And the whole thing is to show different species at the tips, at the end of the branches. Sharks, frogs, kangaroos, humans are 4 species here. We call this speciation. So doing some practice with these phylogenetic trees or cladograms, if we look at this one, we want to know which one came about last. Which one is the most new in evolutionary history. So we'd look at it, and the newer ones are at the very end. So humans would be the newest. Which ones came first are the oldest ones. That would be whatever branched off first, being a baboon. So we talked about this last time, derived character. This is something that is a kind of new or recent trait that has happened, and it's not passed down from an ancestor. So if we look at the derived characteristic of an amniotic egg, so we look at that trait right here, this happened at this point in time, and we want to know which organisms have an amniotic egg. So we look at our cladogram, our phylogenetic tree, and we look at what's after it. So birds have it, prosimians have it, like lemurs, and humans have it. Now, looking at the same one, we want to know which organisms evolved after fish. So we started here at the base with some kind of common ancestor, and then we moved up. Insects branched off, fish branched off, and anything after fish. So amphibians, birds, prosimians, and humans. Now we want to know which ones are not a vertebrate, meaning they don't have a backbone. So we find that trait, vertebrate, on here. And remember, anything after it is a vertebrate. It has that trait. So fish, amphibians, birds, prosimians, and humans all are vertebrates. We want to know which ones are not. So the only ones that's not on here is the insects and the common ancestor at the bottom. So this is the same kind of thing. It's just in a slightly different form. We want to be able to compare species to one another, even if we don't know what they are, just by looking at the tree. So A would be our common ancestor. That's what happened the longest time ago, 100 million years. Branched off into B and E, and then B branched off again to C and D. So C and D would be very closely related. B and E would be pretty closely related. Then E branched off a whole lot more. And it keeps going and going. This H right here, what would have happened to this one? Nothing branched off from it, and it's not here at present time. So H and L and O and P, whatever those organisms were, they went extinct. You'll often see these phylogenetic trees turn sideways or upside down. They're all the same thing. Don't let it confuse you. Just look at the base of the tree, the root of the tree. That's where our common ancestor will be. And then on the ends is where we have the different species. So a couple checkups, just make sure we're on the right path. How do we sort animals in a cladogram? Do we do it by similar physical features or by evolutionary history? The correct answer is evolutionary history. We can use physical features to help, but that's not always going to be telling. So think about like a beetle has wings and a bird has wings, but they're not very similar in any other way. So we want to look at the whole picture. We want to look at the evolutionary history to sort them. Number 7, true or false, is a cladogram or a phylogenetic tree. In one of those, all organisms will have evolved from a common ancestor. That answer is true. In each cladogram, there has to be some kind of common ancestry. We don't have to know what it is, but there's something that was common to all of them that's at the base or the bottom of that tree. So some more practice. We want to know what's a valid conclusion that can be drawn from the diagram. So we'll look at each one. So A, snails appeared on Earth before corals. So we look and we have snails, which came down the line about here, but corals came down here. So corals were first, so A is not correct. B, sponges were the last new species to appear on Earth. Sponges were actually the first species in this to appear on Earth. So they broke off first. So it's not that one. C, earthworms and sea stars have a common ancestor. So we have earthworms and we have C stars. They meet, if we follow the lines back, they meet right there at this point. So whatever organism's there, whatever species there, is its common ancestor. Or we could go even further, and it has a common ancestor back here. So that one is true, but let's look at the last one just in case. It says, this thing will go away. Insects are more complex than mammals. So insects, they occurred before mammals occurred in time, but we can't be sure. The evolutionary trees don't necessarily tell complexity or advanced body systems or anything like that. It's just how they're related. So our answer is C. Now, if we look at this one, we'll do it the same way. We want to know which statement's a valid inference based on the diagram. So we'll go about one by one. Answer A. Species A is the common ancestor of all life on Earth. So we look at the bottom of this phylogenetic tree. Species A is the common ancestor of everything on here, but we don't know that this is a genetic tree, phylogenetic tree for everything on Earth. We only know that it is the common ancestor for all of these. We don't know that it's the common ancestor for all of life on Earth. So it's not A. B, species D is more closely related to species E than to species F. So D more closely related to E than F. Yep, D and the E matched up quickly. They diverged from the same point, same common ancestor. So they are more closely related than F, which didn't have a common one until way back at this point. So B is probably your answer, but we'll keep going. C, B is the ancestor of species F. Nope, F did not come directly from B, so not C. And then D, species C, is the ancestor of species that exist at the present time. So C, it only had these two, and those are not present at present time. So it's not C. So our answer is B. 2 or 3 more slides on taxonomy, and then we are done with evolution. Congrats, guys. Y'all did it. So we have domains. These are the biggest part of taxonomy. Taxonomy meaning like just grouping organisms. So we have bacteria, which includes every type of bacteria. We have archaea, which includes every type of archaea bacteria, which are usually pretty rare, and they're extremophiles, meaning these things live in like crazy acidic environments, or they live in those thermal vents at the bottom of the ocean, or they live in like super hot pools in Yellowstone, those kinds of things. So these are really kind of rare. And then we have eukarya, which is everything that's eukaryote. So plants, animals, fungi, protists, whole lot of diversity here. So those are our 3 domains. Then we can break it up a little bit smaller into kingdoms. So we still have the archaea bacteria. Its domain is its kingdom. So archaea bacteria, archaea kingdom, archaea bacteria. Sorry, back it up. Archaea domain, archaea bacteria kingdom. Bacteria domain, eubacteria kingdom. Then eukarya is where we get our most diversity. We have kingdom plantae for plants, kingdom animalia for animals, kingdom fungi for fungi, and kingdom protista for protists. So that's pretty much it. So we have our domains, the 3 main groups. Bacteria and archaea are prokaryotic, meaning they are single-celled, where eukaryotic, and they're single-celled and they have no nucleus. And then eukarya is all the eukaryotic ones, meaning they have organelles and a nucleus, and oftentimes are more than one cell. You can break those down again. bacteria into eubacteria, archaea and archaeobacteria, and eukaryotic into plants, animals, fungi, protists, and these are their proper names.